Hey guys, this is Jeremy from Moralis.io. Welcome back. This is part 8 of our cloning Etherscan series. Last time we were playing around with some pagination and that was fun. But now we want to add some more transaction result types. Go to Etherscan here, we have our transactions, but we also have some ERC20 token transactions. And it'd be cool to display those as well. In order to do that, we'll need to create a new Cloud Function query. And if we take a look at the tables here, we've been using the ETH transactions table. That's fine. There's also this other here table called ETH token transfers. And this is where we'll be getting all of our token transfer transactions from. And this is great. It has the from address, to address, value. It also has the token address, but it'd be nice to be able to display what the token name is and what the value is in terms of that token. So it's not just a gigantic number in, like 18 decimal places. But in order to do that, because this table doesn't have the decimals or the name, we have to get that from the ETH token balance table. This table has a token address, it has the symbol, and the decimals. The number of decimals are here. It also has the token name. But this is also this also has the address of the users, because this is where all the user token balances are stored. So if we attempt to join to this table just with the token address, we'll get a bunch of duplicate entries. So this makes the join condition a little nasty. And the query to do this is also nasty. And we'll need to work on a way to make that a little simpler, and there's some changes coming in the pipe for that. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to paste in a query, and you guys can take a look at this if you want. It goes deep into the Mongo syntax. Nicholas has a great video here on using aggregates, and there's some docs here in the Moralis docs here about lookups, simple lookup, and the complex joins on multiple equality. And that's what we used here. And actually, the query is much like this one here. But we also have to take into account, we have to also have to do a count. So it's a little bit more complex than even just this, because it takes a double stage. It's a two-stage query. So I'm just gonna jump back into the code here for a second. And I'm gonna add a new file here called queries.js. I actually forgot to make this file earlier. I usually like to put them in here, because that means our cloud functions are inside the repo and inside the version control, and that works a whole lot better. So let me go back to the server here. We can paste in our existing cloud functions that we have into our code. The Moralis thing will not recognize that. We can just do the import statement here, just to make this to make the error statement go away, or the squigglies. This should be Moralis parse there. Then I'm going to also paste in the nasty query to get our token transfers with the token name and number of decimals. So you can look at this over at the repo. This function is called token transfer, so it takes the same arguments. The first stage is a count, so we know the total number of results, and then this uses a lookup with a nested pipeline here to join on the extra columns. And if you want to get into the Mongo syntax for doing this on your own, go ahead. But I'll just show you what the query results look like. Go back to the dashboard here. Dashboard, JavaScript console. We'll call this in exactly the same way as we called the get transactions function. That we'll just call get token transfers. Same parameters, but the shape of the data will be a bit different. So we'll have to, so the post-process function will look a bit different. I'm going to need to paste that function into the cloud functions first here so that it knows what it is. Okay, that's posted in here. Save that. Once that's saved, we can run the transaction here. Try that again. Boom. All right, so we have the result property here with an array, like before, and a count. In this case, the count is 14. And inside each of these results, we have the columns here. This is largely like the other table, except for we have this ETH token balance property. And this contains the rows, the matching row from the ETH token balance table, which has the name, symbol, balance, and decimals. And this will come in handy for displaying the token transfer results in our component. So that's how that looks. Let's get back into the code here. Save this file. Cloud queries. All right. So what's on the list here? We'll need to create some new code here to deal with our different types of transaction result. If we go to Etherscan again, which is still syncing from the hard fork from last night, EIP 1159. Yeah, so you have, for the address search results, you have this card here with the navigation bar with different types of transaction results. We have the regular transaction results that we've already implemented. And these are the ERC20 token transactions that we want to implement now. So we'll need another wrapper component in order to add this navigation bar. And since these tables are pretty much exactly the same, we can also create a custom hook to make our transaction result component more general so that we can display both types of results using the same component. And that's so that's where we're heading with that. All right, to start out, let's create a new component here. And this will be address results, JSX. And new React functional component, address results. And we'll need to get the address from the URL params, just like before. So we can use our use params hook. Address. We'll deconstruct those params. And then I'll grab the component code. Paste that in. Okay, we don't have those ones. Right, and we also need the imports for the router DOM. Here, using route match. All right, so in order to do those router links, we'll need a router component. And React Router DOM has this component called navlink. This is kind of like a regular anchor tag, except for it respects the React single page app. So it doesn't reload the page, it just updates the address location. So we'll have a nav link for the regular transactions and a nav link for the ERC token transactions. And then in the body of the card, we'll need a switch in order to capture the current result and feed it into a route component with a path that's bound to a component. This is our transactions component, which we'll need to import. And in order to distinguish between the routes, we'll be adding a new route parameter here called transtype. And if the transtype is main, then we'll display the regular results as usual. And if it's ERC20, we'll display the new token transfer results. And transactions is the component we had before. So this will wrap our old component, add the navigation, and have a spot to display the transaction result content as before. All right, now in order to get that to work, we're going to need to make some updates. One to our search component, because we need to add the new parameters here for the URL. Let's go to the search component. We can also, while we're here, fix a bug. Because if you notice, if we navigate to the root URL, it goes address / here without an address, and that's an error because our component, when we built it here, it has an initial address state of the empty string. So we can fix both of these errors at once by adding an if. There's no address defined. I mean, as long as there's an address defined, then we'll call this history push. And the default page we'll display is the main. So it displays the regular transaction results. Okay, so that updates our link. It'll get called once we get the search results back. Then we'll need to update app.js so that with our new route parameter here, this will be transtype here so that it properly routes to the transactions component and parses the transtype parameter in the URL. So what's the app.js? Good. All right, next we'll need to make our custom hook and update the transaction and transaction result components. All right, so let's create the hook first. Make a new file, and we'll call this use transtype.js. All right, and we'll export transtype. And we need some state. use state as well, the initial state of an empty object. Okay, we're also going to need the trans type URL parameter, and we can get that from our use params hook. We'll deconstruct that from the parameters. It'll be trans type. Like this. Okay, we'll return the state. And we'll need a use effect hook to update the state based on the current transaction type. This we'll call set state with our current transaction type state, and we'll paste in some stuff here. All right, actually, before I do that, if we take a look at our trans results component, we have this object here with all the column names and the name of the column that displays the data for that column name. So we have that already, and we can create something similar like that for our token transactions. Also in the paginator, the transactions here, this is where we call the paginator. We can make this generic as well. The method name will change based on the transaction types. So this will be the other name we just created, get token transfers, I believe it's called, and we'll create a different post-process function to handle that. So we'll need to put all of this data into our trans type state. Back here to the use trans type, and I'll paste that in here. Right, so this is all of that state information. We have the column names from before for the regular transactions, the cloud function name, which is get transactions, and the post transaction function, which formats our outputs. We'll need to import that. And then these are the column names for the token transactions. Pretty similar, except for we also have the token value and the token name. And our method name is get token transfers. And our post-process function will need to define that. So we take all of this state. We have two different types of transactions, the regular, which we'll call main, and ERC20. These are the same as the parameters that we created here on our navigation links, which get passed as the trans type URL parameter. And we pick that up from the use param hook. So what we can do then here is call our trans type options mapping, trans type options with our trans type URL parameter, and that will return all of the proper state for that transaction type. All right, let's define this process token transfer function. Go to the queries here and create a new file. All this process token transfer. All this token transfer. Yes. Export. And I'll just copy this function here. All right, that's better. So this will call a bunch of functions from our utilities, like the other version we had here for the transactions. We'll add ellipsis. We'll have the human readable Go text, like 1 minute ago. And what's new here is the value. This is the token value text. This is in the utilities. We defined this function a few episodes ago, but haven't used it yet until now. This takes the value, the integer value, divides it by the number of decimals for that token, and then outputs the symbol name and the value. This, like, so if this was uni tokens, this would be like 400 uni, and formats them accordingly according to our number formatting. Right. Process token transfer. Right, and then this takes the token name from our data. Great, so that's the process, the post-process function for our token transfers. We need to import this. And this use effect wants the dependencies. This will depend on trans type. All right, that'll make the compiler happy. Great. All right, so now we have our used trans type custom hook. We can modify the transaction result components to use our new hook. All right, let's start with transactions. Transactions, all right, I'll grab this. Transactions. All right, so we have our use trans type hook. And deconstruct the attributes that we're looking for here. We want the method name, and we also want the post-process function. Instead of hard coding the cloud function name here, we'll pass in our value from the hook, method name, and we'll get the post-process function also from there. Don't need to import that anymore. Great, so that'll fix the parameters passed to the paginator and our page hook. So now we need to modify the trans results component. So we'll also call our use trans type hook here. And this time, we'll deconstruct the column names called columns. Yes, columns. And we won't need this anymore, because we'll get that from our hook. Great. All right, one other thing here. So we don't have any results, or if we don't have any columns, and we want to display null. Because when this first renders, these columns will be defined, because in the state where we have the initial loading, where this is just the search bar, we don't have any of these parameters defined yet. And that will prevent this from calling map on undefined for the columns. Great. All right, so that's created the address results component. We've updated the route in app.js. We've updated the search component to call the proper URL. We've refactored the transaction component and the transaction results. Great. All right, I think that's everything. Let's save. And see how this works. All right, I'll grab our address from before here. And search. Beautiful. Except that this is not displaying the navigation. Did I update the component? No, I don't think I updated the component in app.js. Yeah, this is still pointing to transactions. This should be our address results component. Because that's the component that has the wrapper with the navigation links. So save that, and there we go. That's much better. Now you can see the links here. So this is /main. Let's just go back to the beginning here. Navigate here. So you also notice that the URL doesn't have that /address bug there anymore. So we took care of that. So let's search for the address. Boom, /address and the transaction type of main. This displays the results we had before, and that paginates just like it did. Now if we go to the ESR20 token transactions, we'll notice that the URL updated to /ERC20. And now this displays all of our token transactions. We have the from to, the value expressed in the type of token, and the name of the token. Beautiful. If we page through the results here, we can see that updates. Polkastarter and Paid Network. So cool, that's awesome. Great. You could probably add a bit of styling here to make this look a little nicer, but I'll leave that as an assignment for you guys. That about wraps up this episode. Like I said, grab the nasty query from the repo. You'll either find a tag for it for episode number 8 here once that gets released, or if you go to code and branches, there'll be a Moralis episode 8 branch here if I haven't updated and created a tag for that yet. Great. So that's it for this video. Like and subscribe, and comment down below if you have any suggestions, and we'll see you guys next time.